I remember the phone call very distinctly. I called her, and as part of the chit-chat, I told her that I was having my very first romance. And she asked promptly, "What's her name?" And after a slight pause, I said, "John."
Every youth that comes into this building is respected for their individuality and celebrated for that. I think that's so important with young people, especially when their identity seems to be going in so many different directions. And just when someone comes through the door and they have a unique identity, it's really important to kind of celebrate that in the moment as they are and ask them questions about their identity in a respectful, curious manner.
I identify as a homosexual.
With being trans.
I like to refer to myself as the gender punk.
I'm more gender queer, and I think it's hard to parse that out in my own identity because they play off of each other.
The key component of what we do at Community for Youth is that we create safe spaces for young people. So when they come into our programming areas, they know that there won't be immediate assumptions about their sexual orientation or their gender identity. And we do that through simple tools. For example, at our youth drop-ins, as we check in and go around the room, one of the first questions that everybody answers is, what's the gender pronoun that you'd like to use? And so that immediately sets the stage where young people can feel like, okay, I'm not gonna get weird questions about, my gender, washrooms become a safer space, things like that.
My washroom face, get sort of my game face on, and I go in and sort of the idea that I can be here, you can't kick me out of here, I'm allowed to be here, which is also sort of ridiculous because why am I going into this space so eager to defend my right to be there when I don't actually even want to be in that space? I'm defending my right to be in a space that makes me uncomfortable because they look at me and I'm just like, what's wrong? Why wouldn't you be, do you need to pee? Why wouldn't you be in the right place? Were you not looking for the washroom? Oh, it's because you think I'm not supposed to be here, so you're terrified for some reason.
I believe coming out, if you're queer, I believe it's important. However, I also believe it's a personal journey. And the decision of when and to whom and how someone comes out is something that they can only decide themselves.
Okay, please don't tell anyone else. I was still kind of processing it. But my mom kind of has a big mouth, so she told the whole family. And we were on family vacation, and my brother came up to me and he's like, "Oh, so mom told me you're a lesbian." And I was like, "Oh." He's like, "But it's okay, I'm gay too." And I was like, "Since when?" And he's like, "Girl, forever." And I was like, okay, right on.
It may be an easier thing for them to come out to certain people in their lives. But at the same time, I don't think that it is easy.
So it was only 2 years ago when I finally came out clean and kind of admitted that I was gay. The difficult part of coming out was more coming out to myself and kind of admitting it to myself more than admitting it to other people, because it was more difficult accepting myself than other people accepting me.
We've certainly made a lot of progress. I remember when I first moved to Vancouver in 1995, and I'd be walking down Davie Street and I'd see young people holding hands. And it didn't sit right with me initially. And I couldn't figure out why. What am I holding against these young people who are publicly expressing their affection for one another? And I got my answer shortly after. It's because when I was their age, I didn't have that opportunity. I didn't have that freedom. I would do that at risk to life and limb. Thankfully, today, right, we have the agencies. Here in Vancouver, for example, to have Gab Youth, right, where people can go and they can be in a supportive environment. They can be with their peers. There are adult figures as well who can spend time with them, who can mentor them, right? And we have so many role models as well now that people are able to look up to.
I think society kind of gets it confused when we say that boys need boy role models and girls need girl role models. I don't believe in that at all. I think youth and young people just need role models.
We're seeing role models for queer youth. We're seeing people in media talking quite openly about being queer themselves or about how accepting they are, in fact celebrating all of our wonderful diversity, that in time it's going to get easier and easier.
There's more visible culture, certainly where community is located in the heart of the neighborhood. There's a lot of visibility, and yet what I have to remind people is that As much as we progressed in many ways, it's still really difficult for a lot of young people and their lived experiences, especially when you go outside of not even Vancouver, but just the gay village or certain geographies of the city that are a lot safer than others.
I would say it depends on the area that you live in, for one thing. I mean, where I grew up, it was kind of classic 1950s with a dash of like hippie rhetoric thrown in, because it was military base. Like the small towns, I don't know if they're much better. I'll be really honest there. I hear stories sometimes that scare me, but I also hear stories about little enclaves popping up in places like Vernon for trans people. And I'm like, that's amazing that it's happening, finally, thank God. And that's only in the last year, let alone the last 10 years.
So it's part of the conversation from a young age, and that helps to kind of destabilize heteronormativity, right? If we can understand that there's no such thing as like a normal sexuality or normal gender.
A queer youth drop-in in North Vancouver where all the people that showed up for the focus group were straight kids. And they were talking about how being an ally can be challenging and how supporting their queer friends is really challenging. And I remember one young person saying something like, you know, it's really important for us as straight people to really help our queer friends, because as straight people we have more power in our voice. A queer person can say something and it can go this far, but a straight person can say the same message and it can go way further.
There are shared situations and experiences in these coming out stories, and there are also a lot of differences, and I think that can open up a space, right? Because you can see how many paths there are to get to where we've ended up, where we're all sharing space together.
You know, there are people I know I would quite comfortably die for, and I don't think about them as men or women at that point. I don't think of them as gay or straight. I think of what they're providing for the world, and being gay or straight and being honest about it is helping people like me find those friends who aren't going to judge you.
Again, I believe it all comes down to talking, to being open, to sharing our own stories, and to being willing to take a risk where we feel it's safe to take a risk, to tell someone, to let someone in, but also to tell other people, to let other people know you're someone safe for them to talk to. You know, I think it's important for those of us that are queer to, as I said, come out if that's what we feel moved to do, but also for folks that aren't queer, when someone does come out to you, when someone talks to you, or even in conversation, letting it be known you're someone that's safe, that they could talk to, that they could come out to.
But there are other families which one can then become a part of. There are other communities, there is other support. Live your life, not your parents, not your teachers, not your ministers in church or whatever. Live your life. What's going to make you happy? And what's going to make you happy, that's where you should be.
Being queer has to be more difficult. This is actually not an exaggeration. Sometimes I wake up in the morning, I'm just like, yeah. Awesome, I'm queer.
There are so many variables, and the queer community is so incredibly diverse, and so people should not make the mistake of assuming that there's any homogeny within the community.
I'm a friggin' girl, okay? I'm a girl. I don't have a penis. I have a female part here, and I have boobs. I am not a he, she. I am not an it. I am a friggin' girl, okay? Don't go around saying, what is that? Who is that? Is that a girl or is that a guy? Why is a boy in the girl's washroom? No, I belong in this washroom. Get it straight, okay? This is my washroom too. Just because I look like this does not mean I don't have that.
The only thing that having like a gay neighbor is going to do is make your kid feel maybe a little more comfortable about talking to you about something. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be about them. Maybe it could be their friend Bobby who's dealing with an issue.
Joe Blow, it doesn't choose to be gay, it's who he is. Because in retrospect, do you think those people really choose to be different? The answer is no.